This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Saturday. Today, as always, we have Mac and Jack, the sports gurus of this northern hemisphere, and I'm trying to get excited here, and of course, Dr. Paul Seminger, famous author of a Yankees book.
Something
I
or
don't
other.
read.
He did something sometime.
Yeah, exactly. I don't read any Yankees
Whoever he
books,
is.
so I haven't read it yet. So
I wrote a book called The Great Phillies of All Time.
exactly. That was a small little paperback. Hey guys, so good morning. How's everybody doing today?
I'm doing real good, Pags. Had a little scare at the hospital. Everything went haywire there. I was in excruciating pain. Wife was all upset. I really thought I was a goner, so it was pretty bad.
They gotta do much more than that to get rid of you. Yeah. Well, listen. So let's get right into it because I'm going to let you guys do some talking here. As the Yankees not only had a big day yesterday that Aaron Hicks kind of messed it up, but also baseball big day yesterday. I'm gonna pass it off to the Yankee guru to my left to start it off.
All right, so I think Jack wants us to begin by just talking a quick little thing about some things that happened yesterday. The Yankees honored Derek Jeter for getting into the Hall of Fame. Jeter gave a nice speech. His wife and kids were on the field. The Yankees brought back the core four and a few other guys like Joe Torre to honor Derek Jeter. And Derek Jeter said something profound that was interesting that has people questioning what he meant by it. But he said something about, I haven't been around the last number of years for many reasons, but you'll probably be seeing a lot more of me coming in the future. Now, does that mean he's just going to start attending old timers days, or does that mean the Yankees have a role for him in the front office, or who knows what that means? But it's interesting to know that there seems to be some talk of Derek Jeter becoming more of a presence with the Yankees in some way, shape, or form, because his absence has been felt. People have missed Derek Jeter. And it's always great to see him because he's a type of player that gives his best or gave his best every single day. He went out there and he played hard, and he did this seemingly impossible. I mean, that's part of what the Jeter legend is, the flip play. Like, nobody expected him to be there. Diving into the stands in that game against the Red Sox. There was a play in the World Series in 2000 against the Mets where he had ran to the other foul line and made a catch and a quick relay home to get a runner out at the plate. And time again, getting a hit in his last major league at bat in Yankee Stadium to win a game, hitting a home run for his 3,000th hit, the Jeffrey Mayer home run, the Mr. November, and so many big moments. He was a guy who, if he was on the field, he was playing his best. And the contrast between that and what happened with Aaron Hicks last night. And again, I think, and we were talking about this before we went on the air. I think it's important to just make the note that nobody dislikes Aaron Hicks as a human being. None of us here. It's just that his play hasn't been very good. And what happened yesterday was he seemed to lose his head in the middle of a game. Wander Franco hit a fly ball down the left field line. He was playing left field. He ran toward the line to catch it. He caught it, and then the ball came out of his glove. And Hicks then continued running. It's only a couple steps. The left field foul line in Yankee Stadium is small. He continued running for a step or two and stood against the wall dejected before he realized that the ball was fair. You need to pick the ball up and throw it back in. And he did, but by then 2 runs had scored. The very next play, the very next batter hits a ball. Hicks runs to his left, but the ball was over his right shoulder. And then they went against the wall and another run scored. The Yankees end up losing 4-2. He didn't seem to have his head in the game. He doesn't seem to be focused. And it's a big contrast to what the Yankees have seen with Derek Jeter. And it's sort of, in my opinion, as I said on the 7 a.m. Yankee show, it illustrates what my big concerns with this Yankee team has been for a long time, that they don't necessarily have the fundamentals. They don't necessarily have the focus. They don't necessarily have the drive. And I think that's a direct result of the manager. And it's a problem. And it's why the Yankees haven't been able to get back to the World Series.
Well,
So-
Doc, Aaron Hicks was taken out at the end of the inning.
Yeah.
So it's not like the manager, Aaron Boone, was indifferent. He did address the situation.
Yes, last night he did, but Hicks has been playing for years when his performance hasn't been very good. So I'll give him that. Yes, he did. He took him out of the game, but let's see what happens going forward. Is he going to play? Is he going to be in the lineup tonight? Is he going to be in the lineup tomorrow? They're batting him leadoff. He's hitting under 200 since the All-Star break. Is he going to bat third like he did the other day? It just doesn't seem like the players are held accountable. I mean, yes, indeed he was last night, but by and large, when they don't hustle.
But Doc, Aaron Hicks has 4 years left on his contract after this year at $10 million a year. That totals up to $40 million. Another team's not going to pick up that contract. This reminds me of Jason Giambi in the past when he wasn't hitting for a while. And Joe Torre's philosophy with the coaching staff is, well, we're basically stuck with the guy. Let's straighten the guy out. Can Aaron Hicks be straightened out?
Yeah, I think Aaron Hicks is showing that he's overwhelmed by everything this year. He hasn't been a very good player for a number of years. He was hurt, and that's always a shame. I feel bad for him. But sometimes the Yankees of old used to say, like, if you're not performing, it's time to go. And they'd eat contracts, and they'd say it's not working. And it's not working with Aaron Hicks right now. I don't wish him any ill will. I hope he goes to a small market team or a big market team. I hope he goes to the Mets. I don't care where he goes. Go to the Dodgers and performs great. But right now he's not performing with the Yankees. And I think it's time that the Yankees made a move and sent a strong message. Like, we're here to win. We're not here to be mediocre. We're not here to be good. We're here to be great. And the Yankees haven't been great. That's what's frustrating the fans. I mentioned this real quickly on the 7 a.m. show. When Hal Steinbrenner came out last night, and I'm not a fan of booing, and when they mentioned Brian Cashman's name last night, the fans booed. They've done that each time that they've had those names mentioned on the field the last number of times. And if you're those people, you have to take a step back and say, why are they booing? Why aren't the fans happy? What's wrong? We keep putting a winning team on the field. We've won for 30 some odd years in a row, but they haven't won the big prize. Why are they not happy? And I think you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what can we do differently? Because obviously we have a fan base that's not happy with us.
And Jack brings up Gardy, right? That he would have been he's a better fielder.
Well, I brought him up Fred Garden before the show.
Right. So I mean, and I agree with him. I mean, it comes to hitting, even bunting or whatever. Still got speed. He's still a good ball player. So. Maybe that was the move they should have made. They should have made a long time ago in the beginning of the season.
Well, they should have brought Gardy back. I mean, I said that all year long, and I didn't have any company on that. I was told, well, Gardy's old, he's this, he's that. One thing Gardy can do, he can catch the ball. He's good defensively. If you recall last year, he made some great defensive plays in the outfield. How well he doesn't hit that well, but he hits well enough, can get on base well enough, could still run. And let's face it, offensively, he's certainly a little bit of an upgrade from what they've been putting out there, certainly over Aaron Hicks.
Pags is loving every minute of this.
And defensively,
I'm wondering if Jeter didn't mean, hey, pretty soon I'm going to be managing this team because this manager sucks.
Jeter's never going to manage. He doesn't want to grind. But Gardy, we both know, would have made that first catch that dropped out of Aaron Hicks' glove. We know he would have made that catch. And
Carlos
the second one, he probably would have made.
Older than Jeff.
On the broadcast yesterday, I was a little upset with David Cohn. I don't know, did you pick up on this? David Cohn brought out analytics on Aaron Hicks missing the ball. I didn't even know they had these crazy analytics. He says, well, there was like a 70% chance of anyone catching the first ball and a 40% chance on the second. He's throwing out analytics. but the analytics don't show how good a defensive outfield it is. A guy like a Gaudy would have had a 90% chance of catching the first one and probably a 70% chance on the second one. And David Cone, they bring out a tape of David Cone allowing runners to score when he was a pitcher because he was arguing with an ump over a call where the runner was called safe when Cone felt he was out. And then they bring up Chuck Knobloch in a playoff game arguing with the ump. But this wasn't an ump's thing for Aaron Hicks to argue with. This was totally different. But a couple of times David Cone brings it up and he's trying to protect Aaron Hicks. I mean, I didn't appreciate that style of broadcasting because David Cone, who's normally very good, you got to tell it like it is. I have compassion for Aaron Hicks. This is probably tearing him up inside. But I also want to go back to something Aaron Hicks did where I wonder, is he 100% mentally attuned to the game? The way Derek Jeter was. Derek Jeter never let anything get in his way of being mentally attuned to the game. And I'm sure there were personal things going on in Jeter's life, but he always had tunnel vision once the game began. Aaron Hicks took a game off a couple of years ago because he was upset over like a social issue that took place with George Floyd. It's good that he's a nice, sensitive human being. He's compassionate, but he missed the game because of that. And would Jeter have missed the game under any circumstance unless it was under any social circumstance? Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. But Aaron Hicks took the day off, the game off. And you just kind of wonder, is New York beating up Aaron Hicks? Is it finally, did it finally get to him because he's heard a lot of booing? And you just kind of wonder. And I feel compassion for Aaron Hicks. I'm rooting for him to make a comeback. I think we all are. But yesterday, it was a really ugly scenario.
I hope he goes to the Phillies because then we all will. Because if he's on the Phillies, then Pags will be rooting for him. So,
yeah, but that we are smarter than that. That's why they brew Brian Cashman.
Well, this is the point. Now, Carlos jumped in the comments and said the Yankees dumped Gallo. Well, they didn't dump Gallo; they just traded him.
And they haven't been any good since then either.
It's probably true. They haven't been good since the trade deadline.
Don't forget, you like to pick up all the Yankee cast-offs: Joe Girardi, Didi Gregorius. Come on.
Yeah.
You know what? Neither one of them are on our team either. So you can go and say all you want.
Aaron Hicks.
Those Yankees, the Yankees just aren't. They don't have the shine that they used to. Somebody's got to get some. Somebody's got to get some shine up that brass because that brass is a little weathered and worn.
One World Series this entire century since 2001. And that was the year the Yankees went for it. Now, the big move would be, the bold move would be to say to Aaron Hicks, you're done. We're going to DFA you. We're going to release you. Just your head's not there. We don't wish you ill will. You're still going to get your $40 million. Another team can pick you up for the major league minimum. And we wish you success. I wish him success. I hope he does great. But right now he seems overwhelmed by New York. And the Yankees have to say we're all about winning. They haven't been saying that.
But what Jack said, what team is going to pick him up with that big contract?
But they wouldn't have to pay it.
Yankees would have to pay the rest of the money on the deal.
The Yankees would pay it.
Not if the Yankees DFA him. If they DFA him, the Yankees would be on the hook for the contract.
Yeah, Yankees are on the hook for the contract. Yes. So another team would get him for the major league minimum.
They need bodies out there for now, unfortunately. It's too late to call Gardy.
It's too late to call Gardy. And I'm not sure Gardy had it anymore. I mean, we look back at what he was.
Last year, defensively, he was very good last year. As you recall, he made a couple of phenomenal catches last year. And you're assuming because he's a year older, well, he slipped. There's no evidence there quite yet.
I tell you,
the Yankees of old would have eaten the contract. They would have said, you know what?
No. Steve Cohen with the Mets, he ate Robinson Cano's contract.
There you go. The Rangers last year with Rougned Odor, they got rid of him. I think they owed him $27 million. They got rid of him. They said he's not helping us anymore. We don't want this contract. We're going to let him go. Yankees picked him up.
Well, I tell you, I think the whole New York scene right now is like an Elton John song. Don't let the sun go down on me, because they are. It seems like all of New York is falling apart. It is September, and the Mets are in their swoon, and the Yankees look like they are about to follow suit, as they had what at one point a 12-game lead in
15
this
and a half.
division.
15 and a
15
half.
and a half games, down to 3.5 games, could be down to what, 1.5 games by the end of this series.
That's correct. And tied in the loss column.
But one thing we know that no one doubts, worst case scenario, the Yankees will be in the playoffs. And I'm going to tell you something. The 2006 season, if you want to look it up, the Detroit Tigers had a similar lead, to what the Yankees had. I mean, they just blew it. They played terrible for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then it comes down to the last game of the season, and they're tied for the division lead or something. And they're pitching their ace, Kenny Rogers, before the playoffs. And they lose the division lead, the Detroit Tigers. They were like a wild card then. And then the Tigers wind up going to the World Series after being so bad. They lose the first game in the playoffs against the Yankees. And then they steal game 2 at Yankee Stadium. And then they go on a roll and they go into the World Series where they lost to the Cardinals. So that could happen with the Yankees. Don't kid yourselves. They're getting a lot of guys back. Anything could happen in those playoffs.
I'll say this, because I know one of the debate questions is, are the Mets choking? And Pags just brought that up. The Yankees are playing terrible baseball. They've been playing terrible baseball since the beginning of July. They have like a 400 winning percentage. I don't have the number in front of me. The Mets are not in first place anymore. But in the second half, they're still 29-17. That's a 630 winning percentage.
Let's debate question number 1. Let's start off.
All right, I'll start it off then. I don't think the Mets are choking. I think the Mets are playing solid baseball. They're doing well.
So the question is real. I'm sorry. Just so that the question is, would it be considered a mini collapse if the Mets get beat out by the Braves for the division title?
And I say no, because the Mets are still playing pretty good baseball. They're 29-17 in the second half. That's not a collapse. They're playing at a 630 pace. It's sort of like in 78 when the Red Sox lost to the Yankees. They still played very well in the second half. The Yankees were just remarkably better. And when they played head-to-head, the Yankees just crushed them and eliminated the deficit that they had. That's where the Red Sox collapsed. When they played head-to-head. But the Mets aren't collapsing. The Mets are still playing pretty good baseball. It's that the Braves are playing amazing baseball.
It's going to be perceived as a collapse, and you just have to look back at the 78 Red Sox, who had the big lead over the Yankees and lost the division in the one-game playoff. That Red Sox team didn't collapse because they won their last 8 games of the regular season.
That's what I just said.
Right, yes. Right. But this scenario, the Mets have been in first place all season. Okay, let's say they got overtook by a remarkable Braves team that play really well, and the Mets lose in the first round of the playoffs. What are Met fans going to take out of it? If they're going to brag about their season, they're going to be told, you guys were a wild card team that got eliminated in the first round. Bottom line, that's not that successful. Okay, no matter what they did in the regular season. Look, the Dodgers won 106 games during the regular season last year. They were a wild card. They didn't get to the World Series. In a way, they feel it was a wasted season, and that's winning 106 games. I mean, Mets need to win the division. If they don't go to the World Series and they wind up being a wild card, somehow their nice clothes are going to have this tiny little stain where they're told, oh, no one notices it. But they notice it. Okay.
Just to go a little bit further onto what you were saying with the 29-17, going a little bit closer and getting a little bit more of a smaller sample size. Since August 15th, they are 3 games under 500. So they've been just for the last month, since August 15th, they've not played so great.
But haven't we always said that baseball is a marathon, right? So if you're going to say that's a collapse when you're playing all these games and they've been they're at the top all year, how can you consider this a collapse? It's a marathon. They've been battling all year. They've been, I don't think it's a collapse at all.
Well, the Mets haven't, but you lose a game yesterday to the Marlins, for example. Come on, you got to win games like that at this time of the year. You can't start losing to teams like that.
They're all professionals, Jack.
I agree.
They're all professionals.
I agree. Well, and you have Scherzer that just got hurt. DeGrom is still the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, obviously, and he's proven that every time he goes out there. But they don't give him any run support. He must have thought he was in a twilight zone or something the last game when they scored 10 runs for him. But I mean, it's I'm beginning to wonder. Like I said, obviously, I don't want to face the Mets in the wild card. If I had my if I get my choice, I'd rather the Padres take on the Mets and we would take on St. Louis. I feel that we line up better with St. Louis than the Mets. That being said, we're not going to have that choice. And if the Mets continue on the path that they are, it could be one of those situations where they've killed us all season long, but in a 3-game series and not having one of your aces, it's possible that the Phillies could erase all of the misery that they gave us this year by knocking them out of the playoffs.
No, I got an interesting question for you guys. It should have been a debate thing, but none of us thought of it. If I said to you, DeGrom and Scherzer are the greatest 1-2 punch in baseball history, name a better 1-2 punch in baseball history better than those two.
Smoltz and Maddox.
Now,
I was just going to
Smoltz
say
and Maddox.
Smoltz and Maddox, not.
Without a doubt in my mind, and then you could even add Glavine or Maddox or
Yep.
Smoltz and Glavine. Any combination of those three.
I thought you'd say Johnson and Schilling, Martinez and Schilling, maybe.
Drysdale and Koufax.
there you go. Cool.
Drysdale isn't as good as Scherzer.
Yeah, here's the difference. Here's the difference. Drysdale and Koufax were out there. Here's the problem with Scherzer and DeGrom. It's been the problem with Aaron Judge until this year, many of his seasons, and Giancarlo Stanton. You can have great talent, but part of being a great player is you have to be on the field. And if you're not there, if you're hurt all the time, which seems to be what's happened with Scherzer and DeGrom, then you could have the greatest talent in the world, but if you're not playing, it doesn't mean anything.
If they were pitching, ready for the playoffs, healthy, ready to
couldn't
go.
the Phillies
maybe
Pax, when the Phillies had that great rotation in the 2000s, they had Cliff Lee. Name all those guys they had. They had like five.
They had the 4 aces. They had the 4 aces, and then Blanton was the 5th guy.
And who were the 4 guys? I mean, that on paper
Holiday,
with those
it was
guys.
Holiday, Cliff Lee, the guy from the Astros. He was a great pitcher for a while, and then Hamels. But
I mean, just on paper, that's like unbelievable. They were saying that might be the greatest rotation of all time at the time.
Right, and they won 102 games, and we didn't do anything else. We lost to the Cardinals 1-0 in Game 7.
Better than Clemens, Musina, Wells, and that crew.
I would have to say, in terms of like even by longevity, that the Braves lineup, the Braves of all of those years. I mean, they didn't win a lot of World Series, and I'm happy about that. But besides that point, I mean, they were the staff that won and won, and what's all they did was win.
Baltimore Orioles, 4 20-game winners. Palmer, Cuellar, McNally. I mean, they were stacked.
Hey, the Mets, the 69 Mets, right? I mean, that staff was by the best staff in the league.
Well, that's
so this is everybody could say like, oh, hey, we got this, and that everybody's thinking that they got the best 1-2 punch that's out there. That's what makes it a debate question, because realistically, there's no way that we can really say for certain who was the best 1-2 punch of all time.
Just the
that's-
thought that popped into my head. I couldn't think if they were at the top of their game and healthy and raring to go. I couldn't imagine a more potent 1-2 in baseball history than DeGrom, who's virtually unhittable at his best, and Scherzer, who's Hall of Fame great, super.
Finally,
Hall of Fame.
Frankie and I agree on something.
Frankie and I agree on that too.
Nice to see you.
But so I to go back to the original statement, I do look at this as a collapse by the Mets. Again, the Mets, obviously it's hard to keep up a 700 winning percentage all season long, and that you have ebbs and flows. But you can't tell me that the Mets aren't now thinking about that this is another swoon during a time where we don't need it, and we are, that they're starting to get in their own heads. I feel it's the same way with the Yankees. I think that the Yankees are going out there and trying to win. I don't feel like when you're saying that Hicks is, not fully, I think that what happened is that, all right, so he had that bad play, and then now he was dwelling on that bad play and had a second bad play. Earlier in the season, we had that problem with Alec Boehm. Alec Boehm would make a bad play. They'd hit it to him again. He'd wind up, because he was still frustrated about the one bad play, he made a second bad play. And ultimately, that's where the statement came out, I hate this effing place. Because he said that. And, of course, that made national news. And then he's like, no, I really don't hate it. I really was just more frustrated with my play. And that's where it came out to. So I kind of feel that probably is what happened with Hicks. That one bad play creates more bad plays. And they had to pull him out because you could tell that he was probably just over frustrated with himself. And now it's time to sit down because you can't bring that, because now because that just compounds it. That all being said, I mean, the Rays have had the Yankees number for a little while now. And the fact that they have to go do this down the stretch, they have another series with them too, do they not? This isn't the last series.
This is it.
Let me ask you three guys
this.
Let me ask you three guys just starting out with Mac. If you're the manager, do you bring Aaron Hicks back today, put him in the starting lineup to try to give him that jolt of confidence, saying, look, I got confidence in you. Forget yesterday. Today's a new day. Because if he has a good game today, let's say he played, he puts that fiasco behind them if he has a good game today. But if you sit him, you got to come back with him at some point. Logically, they're not going to release him this late in the year and send him home. He's going to be on the team. So you're going to use him at some point again. So why not just get it out of the way now, perhaps? I mean, just
not knowing the makeup of the Yankees, I would DH him. Yeah, that's where I would have him in the lineup and not out in the field, specifically because now you're just saying, listen, I want you to be involved in this game. I need you to be moving forward. I think that it's best that we just sit you out, but we get you up at the plate, so that's that brilliant. You at least you're doing both.
Brilliant, Pax. Good thinking. Yeah,
Mac, you're gonna go.
I think maybe we should get on to question 2 if you want.
I thought we were going to just finish this.
Okay. All right. So
Pags got it under control, Mac. We can relax. Pags got the order.
Yes.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yes.
All right. So I would not play him. He would sit on the bench today. I think if he gets up there at the plate, he's going to be showered with boos from the Yankee Stadium, and that's not going to help him at all. And I think the Yankees have shown a very long leash with a lot of these guys. And the what happens is he had a big double the other day, and I mentioned this again on the early show. And IFK hit a grand slam, and then what seems to happen is all of a sudden they go, "Oh, he's back! Look, he's back!" So IFK was 3 home runs this year, and I know everybody's injured and all that, and they're decimated. But then the next day after he hits a grand slam, he's batting cleanup. I mean, it's just like at some point it gets silly. So Hicks hits a big double. It's his first extra base hit since July 19th or something. And they're like, oh, he's back. He's not back. Just because you have one hit doesn't mean you're back.
Cleanup is symbolic. It's nothing more than a guy hitting number 4. It's symbolic. It's nonsense. Doesn't mean they're looking at him as a power hitter. Aaron Judge has hit number 2 a lot of the times. Symbolically, the number 2 spot would be for a guy to bunt with a leadoff hitter getting on. That was the old timers mindset. It's
You still
about
look,
I think
symbolic or not, you don't take a guy who has 3 home runs at batting cleanup. It's just silly.
But cleanup is a silly term at this.
Batting order construction still matters. You can't say it doesn't matter.
He hits number 4. It's just a term, cleanup. Cleanup was invented because they figure, the first 3 guys get on base and number 4 is the big power hit. It's nonsense. That
Show me a team that puts a guy with 3 home runs in the 4 spot.
I've been brainwashed. You've been brainwashed.
No, it's not brainwashed. It's just roster construction. It's lineup construction. That's why Judge bats earlier, because they want him to get more at bats. The higher in the lineup you bat, the more at bats you're going to get. So you don't put IFK in the 4 spot.
I think the number 3 batter is way more important than the number 4 batter.
I agree.
I think you put your best hitters up at the top of the lineup. Your very best hitter, hit him first, because you might get him up 1 extra time during the game. But this silly mindset is, bat him 4th so he could knock in a run. Chances are you don't do anything the first inning anyway. You might wind up leading off the 2nd inning. You want to get him up that 1 extra time. The Yankees now have the right idea, with Judge with that. IKF, by the way, I'm going to tell you, IKF impresses me. His head is into the game. I mean, he does all the little things really well. I wonder when the Yankees' 2 shortstops, one is up already, Peraza, and then Volpe comes up. Is there going to be a spot for, IKF? But Peraza might be the second baseman. Volpe might be the shortstop, vice versa. And I don't know what happens to Gleyber Torres. How come the Mets are so stable? We don't talk about all these switches with them.
Because they have Buck Showalter, and because he's too old, we don't want to say that anybody's senile. That being said, we're done talking about New York baseball right now because there were some rule changes. We're going to call a little bit of an audible on the debate. There were some rule changes that got signed into law, I guess, yesterday. I'm not a big fan of these rule changes. Some of them I am. I am okay with the pitch clock. I am not okay with the pickoff moves. And I am not okay with the no shift. I think if you institute the pitch clock, you don't have to institute the shift ban. My personal opinion. The pickoff thing, not a big fan of that. Only because now if you go to try to pick the guy off twice, now he's already going to get awarded second base because now he can take a long lead as he wants because you can't pick him off again. You got to go to the plate, which means now he's halfway between first and second or second and third because that works both ways. If you're trying to pick a guy off of first base, and the guy's at third, you could almost steal home at that point. It's going to create a lot of weirdo.
Well, let me ask you guys something that I don't understand in the rule, guys. On the third throw to first base, is he automatically awarded second if they get him out on the third throw? I mean, are they allowed to get him out on the third throw if they could put a tag on him? That's what
there's not allowed to be a third throw. When there's, that's the way I understood the rule.
You either pick him off by the second throw or he gets the base. Yeah, I love that rule, by the way, but let's hear the rest of it. I'm not a fan of
that rule, but I'll let you guys do some talking.
Well, I'm glad the shift is back. That's for sure. I mean,
you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Ted Williams hitting the shift, a lot of batters hitting the shift, and if you can't do it, if you can't go the other way, that's your problem. You're a professional hitter, and you should be able to do that.
Yeah, but they banned it now. They've banned it. So you can't do the shift, and you have to have both feet in the dirt on the infield.
Yep.
I'm not a fan of either one of those calls.
Nope.
And then when you have the AstroTurf, so now when you got fields like whether you have the AstroTurf, they got to have the line out there so that you can kind of see where the dirt would be.
Well, I'm going to tell you something that I'm a fan of that the analytics have shown in the minor league games with the pitch clock and all. It sped the games up by an average of 26 minutes. and that cuts down on the length of games. And I think we could all agree on that. That one thing is positive, speeding the game up just a little bit. For years and years, I thought of that in my head, the pickoff move, that the pitcher should be capped on how often he could throw to first base. And I kid you not, guys, I've been thinking about this for decades. That's how I felt. And finally, it became a reality out of nowhere. So that's great.
And let's not leave the batters out of this, right? They get in the batter's box, they get out of the batter's box, they're adjusting every piece of equipment they have. They're up there for a friggin' hour doing it. It's ridiculous.
Well, but they can't do that now, Mac.
Right, exactly.
Right, exactly. Now with the shift, it allows eliminating the shift. It's catering to the pull hitters, basically, the guys who can't hit from all fields. But let me mention this to you guys. What about other sports? They do something similar. They don't allow zone defenses for players to be stacked in a defensive position. So why shouldn't baseball be allowed that?
Hold on. They do allow zone defenses now. They actually got rid of that rule. So they
Well,
do allow zone
they
defenses.
got rid of it. But what would be wrong? Let them play the players. To me,
Well, and here's where I come in with this shot clock, with this pitch clock. That if they're doing it within the allotted time of the pitch clock, who cares? So now the third baseman's got to run to left field and run back to his position because they're not going to give you the time to do that. So if you're going to put a timeline on what you can and can't do, I don't care what it is that you want to do during that time. You want to go run to left field and then run back in 15 seconds time, go do it. That's on you. Because ultimately, the pitcher, and when the clock is winding down, he's got to be in position and going through a windup by the clock reaching 1 second. If he's not in the windup by second number 1, then it's automatically a ball.
Yep.
Well, the next rule change they might have is on the intentional walk of a major star like an Aaron Judge, where maybe they find a way to give him an extra base. You walk him, it means he gets 2 bases instead of 1. Because
they'll never do that. They'll never do
yeah,
that. They're already killing this game. They're already destroying this game. These rule changes, like I said, I don't mind you when you're putting things in place to speed the game up. I can appreciate that. But don't dictate how anybody's allowed to play. If they want to have all 9 guys on the one side of the field, as long as they get there in time for the pitcher to pitch the ball, I don't care. Because they all got to run back.
So let me ask you this question, because I'm against the shift and I like that rule, and I know I'm the only one who does. But you're saying that you can't say where the players play and there is no rule. Okay, fair enough. So let me ask you this. With nobody on base, why do you need a catcher?
Well, because again, that becomes now it becomes a matter of the pitch clock, because you got to get the ball back to the pitcher. But you're right.
All right, all right. Fair enough. With the pitch clock, you got something there, because the idea would be then don't have the catcher, and now you have another guy in the field, right? We'll put him right over second base like they do in softball, and have the 10th man, because if there's nobody on base, just doesn't matter where the guy catches it. The ball will just go over the plate and then it'll hit the umpire, right? I mean, because they do make rules about where players have to be. Where does the pitcher? Can he pitch from anywhere he wants? He can't pitch from anywhere he wants. He has to pitch from the rubber. So they're already saying that certain players have to be in certain spots. So what happened with the shift is it didn't happen naturally, that people just realized that, and yes, they shifted on Ted Williams, but they didn't shift like every single batter, every single play. And they've taken away the natural flow of the game. And because guys can't hit the other way, I know everyone says, you just learn to do it. If people could learn to do it, they would have done it already. You don't think Joey Gallo wishes he could hit the left field? He can't. He built this skill set hitting a certain way from the moment he was a kid into his 30s. You can't just change that. The guys like Carew and Wade Boggs and Tony Gwynn and Ichiro and DJ LeMahieu, there's just not a lot of guys like that.
Wait, Doc. How come a hitter that sprays the ball to all fields, it could be a Carew or George Brett, if you told them they had to pull the ball, they could change their style and they'd be effective pull hitters. But why?
You're saying that, but how do we know that that's true?
Yeah, because we've seen them do that. We've seen them hit the ball to all fields.
Right. We've seen them hit the ball to all fields, but we've never seen them just become an absolute pull hitter.
But we don't see a Joey Gallo. You rarely see him hit the ball to the opposite field when he hits the ball.
Correct. And you didn't see Mark Teixeira. You don't see a lot of guys do that. Why is that? It's because they can't, because the game has evolved. You're pitching, there's 100-mile-an-hour relief pitchers coming in. It's not as easy as just do it. So you get rid of the shift, which allows the game to get back to some of its natural rhythm. And you're not seeing line drive hits to right field that become outs. And then, this is my theory, people disagree with me. What that does is it then says, I can't hit to left field. My skill set doesn't allow that. My swing doesn't allow that. My entire career is based upon a swing that worked in this specific way. So I have two choices. One, to try to hit the other way, which doesn't work and messes up my swing, or to try to hit the ball over the shift, which then leads to the three true outcome baseball. You're going to either hit a home run, you're going to walk, or you're going to strike out. And that's why the game has gotten boring.
All you got to do is lay down a bunt. And if you can't lay down a bunt, then you don't belong in the major leagues at all.
Right, but list me the players who can lay down a bunt. I was at the game on Wednesday night. Alex Trevino couldn't. Jose Trevino couldn't lay down a bunt.
You know,
it's not a skill that they do.
So, but I get that. So here's what's going to wind up happening now, because they're not banning the shift theory. So what you're going to do now is your left fielder is going to go run instead of your third baseman. Your left fielder is going to go run to right field and play short right because he doesn't fall into the mix. You're going to have the shortstop behind second base, literally right on the edge of being where he's just on the other side of second base. And then you're going to have your second baseman and your first baseman. And then you're going to have three outfielders playing that same position. That's all it's going to turn. And the truth of the matter is,
I don't see them moving the outfielders. They're not going to do it. They still
got to do that with the pitch clock. Still got to make it happen within the pitch clock. So I don't think you need to ban the shift. Again, these guys are getting paid way too much money. Too much money. And that's my problem here. You want to get all these millions and millions and millions of dollars where everything just continues to go up. The price tag for us to go to these games now is getting more and more ridiculous, to go watch 4 hours of Drek on the field, because we got to put the defense, we got to make sure that the defense is in a specific way so that we can look like that people can hit the ball. It's not our fault. It is not our fault that these guys can't hit and they're getting paid millions of dollars. That's what I have the biggest problem with. That these guys, you can continue to raise their salaries and they can't be all the tools. They can't sit there and do a bunt. They can't hit there inside the shift. That's not our problem. And as long as by instituting the pitch clock, I think that you give everybody the right amount of time to do whatever it is they want to do. So if they want to shift, that's fine. But now you're wearing out your third baseman by making him run back and forth. So maybe you decide not to shift because of that. But that's on you, not on the rules. That's what I have the problem with. Baseball has been this way for over 100 years. Now, all of a sudden, we got to get smarter about it. I don't think it has anything to do with the speed of the game. I think that they're trying to just generate some more offense. That's why they're banning the shift.
Baseball hasn't been this way for 100 years. This overabundance of the shift has only been the last number of years, 10 years maybe, probably not even. That's been the change. The change isn't that they're outlawing the shift. The change is that there was a shift that was used on every single player. Yes, it was used on Ted Williams, but it wasn't used on all the players. It was a unique thing that they tried, and they didn't use it always against Ted Williams. It was used like in a year or two against Ted Williams. It wasn't used throughout his whole career. And there was this sense that the players played where they're supposed to play. Then that changed, not because of great strategy. It changed because of analytics. And they said, like, there's a 90% chance that the guy's going to hit the ball to this exact spot. So let's put an extra player there. They're not going to move the outfielders because on the off chance that a player does go the other way, if your left fielder's in right field, that then becomes an inside the park home run. The risk reward isn't worth it on that. But to move your shortstop to right field to give up a single to the left side, that is worth it because most of the time the guy's going to hit a line drive. It's going to be a real line drive single like it would have been for 100 years. But because they put this shortstop in right field, now it becomes a ground out. That's why they have to shift this, because the only way to beat the shift, and I know we can all say hit against it. It's not that easy. If it was, they'd do it. And they tried for a long time. So the only way to beat it is what Ted Williams tried to do is hit it over the shift.
As much money.
There you go.
That has nothing. The money has nothing to do with it.
It has everything to do with it.
It has nothing to do with it.
Listen, and how about the relievers too, right? We got all these relievers coming in all the time, throwing 100 miles an hour, so you can't really pull the ball. I mean, they have it the way they want it, Doc. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not a big
without
fan.
the shift, you're going to see a better brand of baseball next
year.
So,
and I still believe that you're going to start seeing them moving the outfielders, even if you move the center fielder to more short right, and you move the left fielder over to cover over more space. I think that you still can have a variant of that shift. They're not blocking the shift in total. They're making everybody now all of a sudden you got to be on the dirt. So what happens if you're not on the dirt? What is the result of that? Do you give the guy a single? Is that what happens if you decide that you're going to play off of the dirt because you want to play a little bit further back? Because sometimes hitters, you want to be a little bit further back on second base or at shortstop.
Yeah.
You want to be a little deep. But now you're not allowed to because Manfred said you can't. That's ridiculous to me. It's all ridiculous.
I want to tell you how scary third base is, right? They squared a bunt, you come charging, and they pull the bat back. And you slide down. You don't know what the hell's going to happen. Take your head right off. So listen, guys, I'm still going to hold to this. They're Major League Baseball players. They get paid loads of money. And if they can't do that, then get out of the game. Period.
Yeah, and that's again, if you got guys that would be hitting singles. Hey, listen,
Ted Williams did not hit against the shift. Just so you know, Ted Williams pulled the ball even into the shift.
So
you're saying Ted Williams don't play? Ted Williams, get out of the game, Ted. You don't belong.
Guess what? Ted Williams still hit 400 did he?
No, he hit 400 once. He hit 400 once.
Yeah, but he still hit like 300 plus.
Yes, he did. Hitting into the shift.
Even with the shift. That's right. So obviously he was good at it.
But he's Ted Williams.
That's okay. That's okay. He's right. He's
not everybody's Ted Williams.
No, Ted Williams didn't make any money either.
You have to understand what Doc's coming from. He's a compassionate human being. He wants Joey Gallo to have a job in Major League Baseball. He's looking out for the Joey Gallo types.
I love Joey Gallo. I love being able to announce what he did yesterday.
And since the whole thing about baseball, it's a long game. We know that, but that's what it is. We bring our families out there. We, even at the minor league level, they got different activities for the kids. I mean, that's the beauty of baseball. That's what baseball's all about. So I don't want to hear this nonsense about the players not being able to hit in the shift and all that. So I don't want to hear it anymore.
Here we go. There's something for you, Doc, because I feel like I've been yelling at you.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you. That's awesome. I appreciate that. The least among them. Hey, if you're in the New Jersey area, I'm actually going to be in the Mahwah Public Library this Monday, the 12th at 7 p.m., talking about that wonderful book, The Least Among Them.
Beautiful.
Just won 2 more awards as
great.
well. Thank you.
It's great. Father and son story, marathon. I mean, it's great. Great book.
There we go. So, I mean, that's what happens. That's the type of entertainment that you get here. We get, award-winning authors, both in boxing and in baseball here. And then there's me and Mac.
And it's all fun. It's good. It's good stuff.
And as I said, and I said on the show preview, I'm still reading the back of cereal boxes.
So, I real quick before we go to a break, I'm going to throw out another debate question. We're going to change a little bit to basketball. Is it fair to blame the New York Knicks owner James Dolan for the
Yes.
team's lack of success?
Of course.
I figure this is a good 10-minute thing that we can talk for.
I'll start up quickly. No, not at this point. You could have done it before, but you can't put a lifetime blame on a guy. He hasn't been that involved. He's left it up to his people to run the team, basically. We haven't heard anything Dolan has done that's been negative. This latest thing where they didn't sign Donovan Mitchell, he left it up to his people to get it done. Money wasn't the issue. He would have paid whatever it took. They had to make the proper trade. The Knicks didn't feel comfortable with what Utah, wanted to get from them. Keep in mind, James Dolan is the owner also of the New York Rangers. We don't hear anyone complain about the Rangers, his ownership with them, do we? But we hear about the Knicks because he made a mistake years ago. He brought in Isaiah Thomas years ago. Okay, that was a fiasco. Bringing in Phil Jackson, to me personally, was a big mistake. Big. But to most people, it wasn't at the time. This is Phil Jackson, who had, 11 championships, 6 with the Bulls, 5 with the Lakers, and he was a former Knick player on the team who had 2 championships with the Knicks. He was bringing in one of his own, in a sense, in Phil Jackson. But Phil Jackson was lazy at that point in his career. It didn't work out, but the intentions were good. Look, they got Larry Brown before to coach the Knicks, but then there were conflicts with Brown, with Isaiah, whatever. And no, I mean, he made mistakes in the past. You could have maybe blamed him in the past, but that window is now shut as far as blaming him, for years. And let's not blame James Dolan year after year after year, because he's left it up to his people, and it just hasn't quite gotten done with the Knicks. And the Knicks aren't that terrible. I mean, think of it. The year before last, they were 4th seed. So it's not, and even right now, there may be a little better than average team, you could argue, or maybe just average, but they're not a disaster, the Knicks, as they're constructed right now. So, to me, don't blame James Dolan.
Yeah, I would agree that the Knicks aren't terrible, but they're not good either. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know enough about the Knicks to be able to speak 100% intelligently. I know that if his ownership model is built anything like the Harris Group, that you got to start to hold responsible the guys
the Harris
underneath
Group.
you.
Tell us who the Harris Group is.
The Harris Group is who owns the Sixers. They also own the Devils. They own They own sporting franchises. That's what Harris is the owner of the Sixers. Is the president and owner of the Sixers. But he also owns the Devils as well.
And the Devils have been bad for quite a while.
Well, the Devils, I think that's because Lou Lamoriello just, jumped the shark, and I don't think it had anything to do with that. They are making a resurgence, and they're trying to rebuild the team, but you can't just rebuild the team in hockey like that. It takes 5 years. There's still a 5-year window, and hockey does not fit into the, hey, what can you do for me now, like the NFL can, where you could go from worst to first in a matter of a year's time if you have the right amount of ability to do so. Cap and things like that, free agents available, things like that. In hockey, you can't do it like that. You don't have that ability.
And the draft is totally different, right, Pag? I mean, you got to wait years for baseball and hockey players, for the most part, to come up, where in football and basketball, it's immediate. They're immediately on the field, immediately making an impact.
Correct. And the truth of the matter is that in a draft in hockey, it's not as long as it is in baseball, but the draft picks for hockey, a first-round draft pick has just as much weight as a first-round draft pick in the NFL, and could define your franchise for years to come. But the problem is that the hockey draft has the same amount of talent as the NBA draft, and where you're only having those first 3 to 5 players that make a difference, and everybody else becomes somewhat of a crapshoot. And that's the problem, that you have the longevity of baseball when it comes to hockey and the draft, but you have the importance of basketball. So that's why hockey has such a hard time with getting, being able to change over. If you're in that, 7 to 10 spot or 7 to 15 spot, you aren't going to get any better because the player pool drops so dramatically after the first 3 or 4 guys.
And can we do away with that dumb bubblegum machine for the lottery picks? That's ridiculous.
Oh my Lord, that's and they do that. And the reason why they do that is
James Dolan here. Come on, where's the question?
I think Dolan's. Listen, Jack, I think Dolan is responsible for that bubblegum machine too, right?
So, we can talk about that in hockey later because hockey's really unimportant now, and they're getting ready to get started up. They start in the middle of October, so right in the middle of baseball playoffs is when hockey will begin. So it's not as big a deal. So, but that being said, let's take our commercial break now, and we will be back after that to go after more. And look at this, we got Sal.
Hey, Sal.
He's agreeing with everybody else there that the Yankees stink and that they're going to fall apart.
We're waiting, Sal. We're waiting.
What happens if I get my Yankee card back? If that happens,
nope.
We'll see if you get the.
And they get bumped in the first round.
I'll give you your Yankee card back. I never took it from you.
That's my card, Doc. You don't have possession of that. That's my card.
There we go.
I won't be losing any sleep over not getting it back if that's the scenario.
All right. I don't know.
Exactly, because he's just it's Jets time of year now, so he doesn't have to worry about it anymore. But we'll be back right after these commercial messages, and we'll be back with the debate show.
All right.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this.
Oh, I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get us any.
And welcome back to the Mac and Jack Saturday debate show with Mac, Jack, Dr. Paul, and myself, the Philly sports guy. You know what? Real quick, as we come back into this break, off of this break, I'm throwing another curveball here for a debate question because this is what I'm annoyed already. We're after Labor Day. We just finished Labor Day. I'm starting to see Christmas decorations out. And I'm seeing pumpkins everywhere. Pumpkin this, pumpkin that, pumpkin spice. Thoughts? We won't make
come on, I don't know what nonsense you're trying to bring up, but I will say this with timing. If you're talking about timing or something with how we should make mention that the US Open is going on. And I could never figure out why the final of the US Open takes place when it does. It's taking place during the opening, essentially, the NFL season. I know the Rams played the Bills, but the real opening is, on Sunday, tomorrow.
Listen,
it's going to be taking place during the same time.
I am so tired of pumpkin spice. I'm tired of people mentioning pumpkin spice. I'm tired of everything that has to do with Halloween being brought up so soon. It's ridiculous.
I have to say I love candy corn, and
yuck.
A secret ingredient in my training for marathons is sometimes eating candy corn on a long run, and it's just delicious and wonderful.
Oh my God.
If you stick candy corn out in the middle of a field on a plate, that candy corn will still be there 10 years later.
It may be, but that doesn't make it not delicious.
Untouched, and no bugs or nothing. It's not even real candy.
What are we talking? Like wine, it gets better as it ages? Is that what we're saying here?
No. Candy
He's
corn
saying it gets worse. You put it next to a Twinkie. I think the Twinkies will survive too. But doesn't make candy corn not delicious. So when candy corn comes around, I always enjoy a little candy corn.
I wanted to mention that because of course I'm in Detroit. And I'm staying here with the super fan of the Detroit Lions. And
the amazing thing, Pags, is that place you're playing in Detroit looks just like your place in Philadelphia.
I know it's hard to find. Bringing that piano is a pain.
That must
bring it with me everywhere. But that being said, he's got like 4 sacks of cookies that are pumpkin with the pumpkin cream. I'm like. I'm just saying, I'm not a big fan of pumpkins and such like that. It's that time of year. I understand the whole cornucopia of Thanksgiving and Halloween and Oktoberfest and all this other stuff.
You're like kind of Pags. You're typical Philadelphia guy. You're just like Rocky Balboa. When Adrian said to him, Rocky, it's Thanksgiving. He said, to you, it's Thanksgiving. To me, it's Thursday. You're that type of guy.
I'm a little bit. I love Thanksgiving. Don't get me wrong. When I am giving thanks for the fact that I have people around me, I have a roof over my head. People forget the basics on why they're supposed to be giving thanks. I feel You know, I feel like that social media has kind of changed that. You know, that they're thankful that they, you know, get to eat a whole bunch or get to watch football. You know what I mean? Those are you know, first world situations that, you know, you don't really think about when you're, you know, you don't think about on Thanksgiving how everybody else in the world is you know, eating and how they're doing. So that's why I feel like the holiday has gotten a little off the mark from what it was supposed to be.
Too commercial, Pags. Way
Well,
too
you know what I think? I just think in general with every holiday, the way people look at it, unfortunately, as it being maybe a day off from work. You know, like DACA relates, schools are closed. And even though people might appreciate the holiday, the reason for it, first and foremost, kids are thinking, oh, I don't have school. Staff is thinking, I don't have to go into work. That's how it is, you know, at least in the United States. I mean, that's kind of like a mindset, but we try to appreciate holidays, you know, best we can.
And the apple cinnamon candles and apple cider donuts, you can keep them. Unfortunately, it would give me Aj.
Yes.
You know, so not, and understand that you're not Italian. Aj means that you know, heartburn.
Max, I know for Thanksgiving you're looking at the NFL schedule, like what you have there Thanksgiving. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Sure,
like
sure. I still wish Madden was alive today. Nobody did it like him when it came to Thanksgiving.
Well, hey, listen, I'm in the world of Thanksgiving Day games here. You know, this is what happens in Detroit. They have Thanksgiving Day games. They play it at 12:30, 1 o'clock. The guy who I'm staying with has not missed a Thanksgiving Day game for, you know, I think that, you know, minus the COVID year, hasn't missed it for like 8-9 years. He's, like I said, he's super fans of football teams that don't do very well. I mean, he's got a banner that's hanging up somewhere around here that says the 4-time NFL champion Detroit Lions.
Wow.
Now, he wasn't I don't think his father was alive when they won their last championship. So it's I mean, that's just, but that's where I'm at right now. Is like I said, it gets a little crazy. And the fact that he's got the same fireplace as me it's kind of cool.
That's weird. That's really weird.
There you go. I'll take the Italian cookies.
Biscotti.
Biscotti, I can do it all. I'm good with that. Yes, absolutely. Make sure it's real anisette. Real anisette.
Yes,
not the fake stuff.
Right, exactly.
All right, let's get back to our debate question. About, I feel like we've talked a lot about the Yankees, so I'm going to bypass this one. I'm going to go to the bottom end of this because this is something that the doc can actually help answer with this as well. Which state is most likely to get a major sports franchise first? Delaware, Connecticut. I'm going to also add Arkansas and Utah.
Oh, well, if you add Utah, I can see that happening.
Wait, Utah has one. Eliminate Utah. They got the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
They do have the Jazz.
That's what I was thinking. Right.
So then New Mexico.
And Connecticut already had the Whalers too, so you can eliminate.
They had the Whalers.
Yes.
So you know what I'd like to do? Jack comes up with most of the questions, and when he sent it, I looked it up. I started researching it, and I'm like, has this been something that's come up? Because I don't see either Delaware or Connecticut getting a team at this point. And if I had to pick one, I think it would be Connecticut because there are fewer teams in New England than in the Delaware area because you have Philadelphia and Baltimore, Washington, D.C., it's still close to New York. That's a lot of teams down by Delaware. Once you get above New York City, it's really just Boston, right? So, and Buffalo, which is way out west. So I could see Connecticut out of the two, but I don't even know where. Like I'd like Jack to give us a little of the background behind the question.
I'm not even sure what my answer should be. I'm going to tell you why. Because they would have to draw people from surrounding areas. That's the only way it could work. And where Delaware is located, Pags, you might be able to answer this better than myself. How far is Philadelphia away from Delaware?
So I personally live right between Philadelphia and the Delaware border. It takes me
Right.
15 minutes to get to Delaware, another 10 minutes, and I'm in Wilmington.
So,
And it takes me 20 minutes to get to the stadiums.
so if there was a major league team in Delaware, baseball team, hypothetically, okay, would the same distance basically be between the Baltimore Orioles and the Washington Nationals? Would it be a similar scenario with the Phillies and any team in Delaware?
Yeah, they would be fairly close. That you'll see that the line of demarcation when it comes to baseball ends really at the bottom of Wilmington. That most of Wilmington is, I would say, Philly fans. Once you get a little bit further south on 95 from Wilmington, they become Orioles fans. And
Okay, but if you're starting your team in either Connecticut or Delaware, where's their fan base going to come from? You know, whatever the sport is, it doesn't necessarily have to be baseball. It could be football, basketball, hockey. Where is the fan base? Because I can't see Red Sox fans going to Connecticut and supporting any Connecticut fan because they have an extremely solid fan base there. It's not like a loose fan base. And the Phillies have a pretty strong fan base. Are they going to adopt a team from Delaware to an extent? Okay, that's why I kind of wonder. But if I had to give an answer between the two, I somehow have a feeling it would be Delaware because I think it's a little more wide open as far as building a stadium. I think you could do something a little nicer there, per se. That would be just my guess if I had to give an answer.
But Connecticut's bigger. It has more money than Delaware with all the New Yorkers that live down south, and they've already done it. So I disagree with it. I think,
but it didn't succeed, Mac.
But let's throw more states into the mix here. I think of Alabama and Arkansas. Both do not have a professional team.
Alabama has a professional team. Their college team.
Well, that's
and how about
college is what's the profession there, but that's the USFL went there to try to make something happen.
But the Braves are there also, right? They're a professional baseball team.
They're in Georgia.
Not Atlanta.
That's in Georgia. So, I mean, that's still a little bit of a ways. If you were to put a team in Little Rock, Arkansas, you would actually be able to get from like a 4 or 5 different state area because they're going to come from like Oklahoma and they're going to come from the northern part of Mississippi and Louisiana and things like that you're going to have that. Now, I know when I say Louisiana, everybody thinks of New Orleans, but the top of Louisiana and New Orleans, it's faster to get to Little Rock, Arkansas than it would be. So
Arkansas, I think, wins this debate, but I was thinking East Coast, Connecticut, Delaware.
Yeah, I mean, because when you think about the West Coast, because the other place I think of is like Portland, Maine. Like Portland, Maine. Maine doesn't have it. Now, I know Maine doesn't have a real big base in general. They don't have a lot of people that live there. It's like trying to put a team in Montana.
Well, let me ask you this. If New Jersey didn't have the Devils, could you say they don't have a major sports franchise? With the Jets and Giants count, indirectly? Because they do play
in Jersey.
Right. But they're called New York.
Right,
People
but they play in
them
Jersey.
as the New York teams.
The Dallas Cowboys don't play in Dallas, do they?
No,
they
don't.
So and never have. Although they're in the Fort Worth section of the Dallas Fort Worth area, so you can kind of that I give a little bit more. When they were up in Arlington, you could say that they couldn't really be called the Dallas Cowboys. That being said, that you take away the New Jersey Devils, they had the New Jersey Nets before they moved to Brooklyn. So there again, New Jersey I think is represented okay in that mix. There's not really, other than the New York metropolitan area and Camden and like really maybe Trenton in the middle of all that, there's not really any other place to put a sports franchise that's going to be able to grab from so many different areas. Like I said, when it came to, like, I think about all the different states up on like the northern, the northern west, where you go like North Dakota, South Dakota, and Montana and such like that. But Fargo holds a team? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've never.
Can we put overseas teams in there too? Mexico, Europe. You know, they could house fans there too. They have a big fan base.
Yeah, but
Hawaii,
that's, I mean,
Alaska.
yeah, but also like they do have professional teams there. You know, they're just not in our North American NBA, NHL, you know, Major League Baseball, NFL. They're not part of that group, but they do have professional soccer in Mexico is all over the place, and they always bring a lot. You go to the Premier League, and since the Queen died, they're not playing. But you go anywhere in England, and you have that you're defined by your soccer team. You know what I mean? So there's a lot that can be done, you know, in those areas. Those soccer teams are like football teams over here. So absolutely, they have professional sports over there. It's just not the sports that we know
You gotta
here.
be careful. You can't joke around with the soccer fans in Europe, especially England. Years ago, I'm in Disney World at Epcot Center, and I'm in one of the England restaurant there. They have different countries, the restaurants. So I say a joke to the waiter. I hold up my glass and I say, "Let's have a toast for Manchester United." I thought the guy was gonna, you know, hit me or whatever. He didn't care about his tip any longer. Okay.
Right. Well, they're not used to getting tips anyways. It's usually a penny or 2 pennies to say whether they're good or not. So that's a whole different question on should you tip over in Europe. The answer is no.
I was at Disney World, Tags, in the English pub.
Oh, there you go. Well,
Jack does not tip anybody. Don't worry about that.
I'm a generous tipper. You're kidding. I'm a generous tipper, Tags. I mean, Mac.
so you know what? And you want to talk about generous? To do a little quick story. So I am in the MGM last night for dinner at the, you know, at one of the steakhouse in the MGM, and we're eating at the bar. Me, my brother, and a buddy of mine. And who sits next to us? Jalen Rose.
Wow.
And the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because of tipping, and I pay attention to stuff like that. You know, it's not something you see very often anymore where somebody pulls another person aside and hands them a tip personally. He was handing out, you know, and I'm not trying to tell his business, but he was handing out $100 tips to 6 or 7 people specifically in that restaurant. Like anybody who dealt with him and took care of him, he tipped them personally. And that's something that you always hear about when they don't tip, but I am a firm believer that you should talk about it both ways. And I like I said, I respect that and appreciate that. And when I asked him, I said if he was going to the Lions game, and he said yes. And I said, "Oh, are you an Eagles fan?" And he's like, "Is that a trick question?" I am a Jalen fan, so he likes our quarterback.
Let me ask you a question. in your commercial there, is that Emmitt Smith that's in that commercial? You know, at one of your tailgates?
No, the guy with the hat?
Yeah, and the white beard and stuff.
No, it's not Emmitt Smith. I'm trying to think of that one. I'd have to take a look at it. But there's one picture in there when the guy's doing singing. I thought it looked like you. He's got the same hat on as you and everything. Max making a, you know.
Listen,
I'm gonna tell you, it's very nice what Jalen Rose did, and I'm sure between him and his wife, who's co-hosts, you know, First Take on ESPN, they're making a lot of money. But if you just pull 6, 7 people aside and give him 100, and he normally does that all the time, it's a wonderful thing on his part. It shows he's a very generous guy. But you hope, you know, he realizes the ESPN gig might not last forever for him and his wife. You never know what could happen. I hope he has a very extremely comfortable, you know, egg nest, because to give that amount of money, you know, just hand it every time you go out, you know, it's you hear about,
you know, I can't speak for every time. I just know he went to dinner at a very nice restaurant, and they could have been $20 bills. I wasn't
Oh,
over
okay,
top
that's
of
all
him watching.
bags. It said $100 bills.
It just the appearance
okay.
to me, looked like it was more like $100 bill, not a $20 bill. From the reaction from the people who were getting it. I'm only people watching here. I'm not standing over top. So I may be giving him a lot more credit than he deserves. He was only given 20s instead of hundreds.
Well, listen.
That's an old thing that doesn't get done very much anymore.
Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan have the reputation, at least had it, for not tipping. And that really
also that same boat.
Yeah, that turned me off.
So, and like I said, I'm not sitting there and I'm not trying to guy's life. You know what I mean? He happened to sit next to us. First off, he came out and I'm looking at him and I'm like, I wouldn't recognize Jalen Rose literally if, I had a picture of him in front of me. I looked at his glasses. He had these fantastic looking sunglasses on and I'm staring at him. And then the bartender comes up and he's like, yeah, that's Jalen Rose. And I was like, oh, how about that? You know what I mean? And I'm not, I don't need to get all googly eyed and, whatever. I waited till he was finished eating for me to ask my question. Hey, are you going to the Eagles game? Are you rooting on the Eagles? That was it. I didn't want to, I don't like to interrupt when people are eating.
Well, what would it have been? Wait, let's say that was Keith Hernandez next year. Well, how would the conversation have gone?
So I tell you what, Keith Hernandez, I would go up to. I would absolutely go up to. And I would actually say, Keith, I'm not a fan of yours. And here's why. And I'm sure he could care less how I feel. You know what I mean? It's but I would absolutely do that just because, and I'm going to tell him the reason why I'm coming up here is because I had to hear your name on every day on the Mac and Jack show. I've been trying to reach out to him. I want to get him on the show. I'd love to have a little debate with him about baseball, where we could talk about his 9 Golden Gloves, not 13. And we could talk about how he was co-MVP.
I thought you said it went up to 17 bags.
It was like 26 last time I checked. So, it keeps getting better, but ultimately, if he gets on this show, it would be a lively show for sure.
Yeah. We I used to manage at Friendly's, a restaurant here up on Route 75 and, right by the airport. And the pro wrestlers used to come in, Macho, Randy Savage, Iron Sheik, all of them. And of course, all the waitresses would get all crazy. And calm down, man, calm down. So I go over, I introduced myself to Randy Savage, and he kind of gave me, a desk there. I says, don't worry, nobody's going to bother you. I told the waitresses to keep it down. And he was really happy about that, guys.
Yeah, you don't want to interrupt. I mean, the guy who was sitting next to him did try to strike up a conversation, and he was like, yeah, excuse me for a minute, I'm on the phone, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't like to interrupt people when they're doing that. These guys are human beings. The fact that they could play baseball, basketball, whatever sport. It's like I used to be a waiter at a Bennigan's. If you remember that chain, that was a great chain for a long time. And I would have Jim Fregosi, Darren Dalton, and Lenny Dykstra all come in, and they would of course sit in the smoking section because Jim Fregosi was never without a cigarette. And I was usually running the smoking section. They would come in for lunch before they would go to practice or before games.
That's too cool. You guys remember, Dallas Cowboy quarterback,
Danny White.
Yeah, he came off the field right on the bench. He's smoking a cigarette as soon as he came off the field. That was awesome.
Well, yeah, that was the funny thing that from the '93 World Series where you would see Fregosi go behind the wall because he knew the camera was on him and they wouldn't let him smoke, and he'd be back there. You'd see puffs of smoke coming out from behind the wall, because he didn't want to see him smoking. But yeah, now they've banned tobacco in total. You're not even allowed to spit. It's all seeds. So let's get back to. Let's get back to some of these debate questions. We're done talking about tips and stories of old. You know what, Doc? We're going to start to teach you about football.
All right, I know a little bit. John Riggins.
Quarterback? There you go. Which quarterback is most likely to lose his starting job first?
Yeah, I think it's
Daniel
Daniel Jones. Yeah.
Or Zach Wilson.
Right, because Daniel Jones is in the last year of his deal, and the Giants have to make a big decision. He hasn't been healthy. I don't see him being the long-term answer for the Giants, and if the Giants aren't playing well, there's no real reason to keep playing him. You know, this is only Zach Wilson's second year. He's injured. He's going to miss the beginning of the season, and the rest of the year, the Jets have a job to try to get him reps and to get him playing so that they can make an assessment on whether or not he's going to be a solid NFL quarterback. So he's not going to lose his starting job this year. It's Daniel Jones probably will, because I think next year the Giants are going in a different direction.
I disagree with you, Doc. I think that the Giants, Daniel Jones will be around. He'll have a good season. Zach Wilson will not. Zach Wilson is like a gunslinger, right? He's like a Brett Favre mold, where Daniel Jones is more like a Phil Simms mold, pocket, precise passing. And I think that them giving him another chance is going to be beneficial to the Giants. Like I said, Zach Wilson is a gunslinger. He's like a Brett Favre, and they throw as many interceptions as they do touchdowns. And that's why I think Daniel Jones will be around a lot longer than Zach Wilson.
No, I think the question should have been modified a little bit, and it should have been, will both be the starting quarterbacks next year for their respective teams? That would have been a better question, because if Daniel Jones does have a very good year, Giants aren't going to move on from him. They are going to sign him. I mean,
I think you'd have to sign him long-term, no?
Long-term. And I get the
Never.
feeling this coaching staff with Brian DeBall and the GM Joe Shine, they're not thrilled about Daniel Jones. I feel they inherited him from Giant ownership, because Giant ownership made it contingent on them getting the job to work things out with Daniel Jones. And the agreement probably was, we'll see what we could do the first season, because the Giants are already scouting college quarterbacks for next year. And their GM Joe Shine admitted it. But once again, if Daniel Jones has a pretty good year, he's their quarterback next year, and they are going to have to address the contract situation with him. Then they can't let him go if he has a good year. They've invested too much in him, and then they be starting over with a college quarterback. And Zach Wilson with the Jets, it's a second year, second overall pick in the draft. And the problem with these GMs are, and we were kind of indirectly talking about this with baseball, with the Aaron Hicks situation. Once you invest so much in a guy, like a contract, years, you don't want to move on from him so quick, because you're admitting you were wrong. And that reflects on you as the GM. Number 2 overall pick in the draft. We could have gotten so many great players, and we wasted the pick. It becomes part of your legacy of a GM. So you try to milk it out as long as you can. Hopefully it could work out for you. Then eventually it gets to the point where, you have to move on. But it's not going to quite happen with Zach Wilson. I don't think, this year, unless he gets in there and he's absolutely horrendous. That would be the only way. So my feeling is the answer would be Daniel Jones if it's one or the other. But then again, it might be neither.
I think that Daniel Jones was a bad pick then. I remember being there at that draft, and I just finished an interview with a Giants fan. And I had to go back right to him. I wasn't very far away, and I did a second half of that interview specifically because it was such a weirdo pick at that number 6 spot that they could have probably picked him much later in the draft, that he wasn't going to be in the top 10. And the Giants did have another pick in that draft in the first round. So they could have probably got him at like 16 or 17, which is where they were picking again. But instead, they got him at number 6. They weren't happy about it then, the Giants fans that I spoke about. But I think Daniel Jones, pick 6, Daniel Jones has not been what he was supposed to be.
There was a little talk in that draft, though, I have to point out. The Redskins were going a little bit ahead of the Giants, that the Redskins were really interested in Daniel Jones, ahead of Dwayne Haskins.
Yep.
And so that's why the Giants at number 6 wound up, grabbing Daniel Jones. They didn't want to risk losing him. And Dwayne Haskins, tragically passed in the accident. He may have ultimately turned out to be a very successful NFL quarterback. We don't know what would have been as far as that went, but as far as the body of work that both showed in the NFL, Daniel Jones, I mean, you wouldn't rate him behind Dwayne Haskins at the QB position.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, Dwayne Haskins was a bust in Washington, so much so that they had to drop him pretty quickly in the grand scheme of things because of things that happened off the field. And unfortunately, we thought he was turning his life around, and unfortunately, he doesn't. We don't know the entire story, but hopefully he gets the rest in peace. That being said, I didn't think Daniel Jones was a very good pick. And the fact that Washington was looking after him, I might have considered letting Washington deal with it.
Well, the quarterback position is very dependent on the team position, right? So the Giants didn't have an offensive line. They're changing offensive coordinators. And how can you expect a guy to be successful with that? You can't. He has too many things going on, and you had nothing there that he could fall back on. So I don't want to hear that. Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. When he played last year in the first 3 games, the Giants won. When they took him out, they just gave up.
Well, I feel like first off, the Giants did what's his face dirty, Eli Manning dirty. I would have loved to, he should have finished out his career and, allowed to, when they pulled him, when that coach pulled him and that coach didn't make it, if I was the owner, I would have stepped in and said, no. You don't do that to a guy who's won 2 Super Bowls and you ain't been here long enough. You ain't won really 2 games in a row.
Communication with the ownership. The Giant ownership admitted they miscommunicated to the coach the way they should have gone about things. And the coaches offered to get Eli Manning in the game to keep his consecutive streak going. Eli Manning didn't have to retire. He could have stayed with the Giants as Daniel Jones's backup. When the Giants finally decided in Daniel Jones's second year with the team, he was going to be the starter. Eli Manning still could have been a part of that team. So it's not like he was cut or anything like that. But Eli Manning said himself, being a backup isn't fun, to him, because, he was playing for love of game in large part.
Well, no, and I understand that. And,
and he has a good Eli Manning also has a great relationship with the Giant organization. So there's not that bitterness there to feel, well, they did him dirty. He might not have liked something, but there don't seem to be any hard feelings at all with Eli.
No, he's a Giant for life, and that's how that is. You know what I mean? I don't think that he could never, like I said, I didn't expect that he was going to go anywhere else. Retire or stay with the Giants. He wasn't going to go. He didn't have that same type of makeup that Peyton did or even Tom Brady did. I think that he was somebody who was just going to stay true to New York because I just don't think he would have done really well anyways. Like, I think that it's better.
Your question, we're going to know the answer to that debate question before the year's over, because if the Giants yank Daniel Jones from a game and put in Tyrod Taylor, there's your answer right there. We don't have to wait to the end of the year, I don't think.
I agree.
And you can say the same thing about Flacco, right? If
they yank Zach Wilson at any point and put in Joe Flacco or Mike White, that's your answer whether Zach Wilson's going to be their future quarterback. Not to say they wouldn't come back to him and try to make it work out, but basically that would be the beginning of the end.
I agree with that. So again, I'm going to throw a different curveball that's not on our list here. That the media and these television stations and now Amazon and Apple and all these other places are getting involved into the bidding wars of sports. And you just think about 34 years ago, there wasn't even ESPN. So it's all fairly new in the grand scheme of things with sports and television, sports and the media. Do you feel, because the media has, and these channels have allowed all this money to go to these sports franchises so that you could pay all of these people ridiculous amounts of money. Do you feel that the media is more of a hindrance to sports or makes the sports more worthwhile because it puts it out there? And then I'm going to do the caveat to that question. This Amazon getting in and Apple TV buying in, where you have to now sign up to be able to games. Do you think that's going to eventually start to hurt the actual viewership of these sports?
All right, I'll jump in. The Yankees, most of their Friday night games this year have been on some of these streaming services, and I refuse to pay. I don't think it's good for the sport. I think it's bad for the sport. I think it's bad when you have elderly fans, like some people I know who don't necessarily even, they navigate the internet all that well. To be able to say, you know what, where are the Yankees tonight? Well, tonight they're not on. Oh, okay. And no, tonight they're on the Yes Network. Tonight they're on MLB. This game they're on TBS. No, this game they're on ABC or Fox Sports or whatever. It becomes almost impossible for the casual fan to even know where the game is, to even be able to find that channel on your cable subscription, or to be able to learn how to stream it, or to watch this one on your computer or this one on your smart TV. I think it just distracts. Now, you're saying that they're getting all this money in order to pay the salaries. See, I don't know if that's a chicken and the egg type of thing. When you're saying baseball players or athletes aren't worth the money, the leagues are making the money. They're selling the rights to these games. They're making money hand over fist. And my feeling on that is the players aren't being overpaid because the players are the product. If the leagues and the teams are making this kind of money, the players should be the ones getting that money. The Apple's not giving Major League Baseball or the Yankees money to pay for Aaron Judge's salary. Aaron Judge's salary is going to come after the fact that these big giant media conglomerates have paid these sports and these teams all that money. And the Yankees have made all their money from the Yes Network. So I'm not a fan of taking the game away from the fans. And Jack can talk to this better than I can, but I'll just make the point that boxing for the casual fan is almost impossible to get into. You don't know when the fights are. You don't know where they are. The big fights are then either on Showtime or HBO. And then if you can get those fights and you watch those fights, then when the real big fight comes, it's on pay-per-view. And then you have to sit there and say, do I want to keep investing all this money to follow a sport? I don't, and I don't pay all that money to follow the sport. I watch what I can get, and if I can't get it, I'll just say I'll watch something else. So the Yankees weren't on last night. I watched the U.S. Open. Sorry, Yankees.
Yeah, Doc makes a great point. There have been ball games, Yankee games. I wonder, I hit the guide. It's not on the Yes Network. I hit WPIX. I don't think they're even on that anymore. I hit TBS, Major League Baseball. I'm trying to find it. And it's funny about the Friday night games on Prime. Okay? I had the sound remote and I said, Twins versus Yankees on Prime, no results comes up. I can't get anything at all. So I'm venting to my wife, and she says, oh, you can get Prime on your iPad. And lo and behold, I see a little box she set up a while ago, and I hit it. And now I can get the Yankee games on my iPad. I want to watch it on my TV. But for whatever reason, we haven't figured out how to get it on the TV. Here, my Florida place, I get it on the TV, but here, New York.
Just, all that is the app. That's just the app. You have to sign in to the app on your TV, on your smart TV. But just that little bit of technical difficulty
that Doc
stops you from watching the game.
Old-timers like me. I might not seem like an old timer the way I talk, but I'm not tech savvy because I wasn't brought up on that as a kid. The kids today, are so much smarter. They were brought up on that. They're born into the technology. But someone like myself isn't. And you also, when you're older, you tend to become dependent on other people with the technical stuff like that, because it comes so much easier to them. So you say, okay, figure that out for them. You kind of become a little lazier that way. But now I get the Yankee games on Prime. I could get the Thursday night NFL games on Prime. But a lot of people can't. They can't figure out the channel, where it is, and they kind of get fed up. And some people don't subscribe to it. They don't want to pay the extra money. And as a result, they're not getting Friday night Yankee baseball if they're Yankee fans.
Well, let's not leave out big business, too. They really run the sport. The big sponsors, those hefty contracts, they really run the sport now. They have all the claims to it. They override. I mean, even an owner, they'll override. You see what happened with the Redskins. They are now in charge, and big business is where it's at in sports right now.
Well, I agree. And real quick, just to go back a half a sec to Jack, when you're using that typewriter, is the 1 and the L the same thing? Do you have one of those old typewriters that start with the number 2 because you have to use L for the number 1, a lowercase L? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm working on a boxing story. What has become outdated in the sport, like certain things that were fixture to sport, like the typewriter, no longer. Reporters at ringside typing with a typewriter. That's ancient. Fight posters, ticket stubs. I mean, that's no longer applies. That drives me crazy. I go to a sporting event, I have to have out my app, and scan it, and it doesn't always work. The old-fashioned ticket stub always worked. You just showed it, you got in. But now, with the apps, and then something goes wrong. I tried to go to a Miami Marlin game. Something went wrong with my app. When I get to the stadium, it's, a bit of a fiasco at times.
Well,
and all the ticket agencies, it used to just get your ticket directly from the stadium. Now there's so many things, Ticketmaster, StubHub,
I remember, and it wasn't so long ago in the 90s. I was a broker. So, and I worked with other brokers, but I would have crews of people sleeping out for tickets. And we would go out there for 3 days at a time, where we would set up tents, and I would have people, and so I would have like a group of 12 people, 15 people with me, and you were allowed to buy 8 tickets at a time at the Ticketmaster, and you'd be sleeping out for the tickets, and I'd have them set up one every 8 or 9 people, because they would always put like 8 people in the row, and I wanted to have the first person in each one of those rows. So
but
you would have to do that.
The service fee that gets attached to the tickets too, you didn't have that in the past. You just get the ticket for what it costs. But now the add-ons, especially for multiple tickets, wow.
Yeah, it's all ridiculous, and it's all gouging. It is all gouging. That's what I feel like. That they are just taking advantage of the consumer. And I feel that this is, so the reason why I asked this question is because I feel that this is going to start to have a negative effect, that people are going to start to figure out that they don't need to go out and buy Apple TV. I don't want to buy Apple TV to watch a game on Friday night. And especially they've got such a horrible crew talking about it. You know what I mean? We had Hunter Pence and some other guy who, for the one Phillies game that we watched at the bar, because we were able to get it on the Apple TV because somebody had an Apple TV subscription. But I wouldn't spend the money on that. And then they got that little thing that talks about, hey, well, he's got a 23% chance of getting on first base now. And it's just like, all those little things that they have in there.
Hate it.
I'm not a big fan of. And I think that what'll happen is that you got these companies that are buying these rights to these games, and then nobody's going to start watching, and that ultimately it will wind up going back to public television again. I think. Yeah. I believe.
Possible, or at least the major network.
Yeah, because I feel like these Thursday night games, they've been trying to work this part out for a while now. And it's, now that Amazon's got it, because I want to say probably 65% of the country owns Amazon Prime, because if you had to deal with Amazon ever, it's cheaper to get the Prime.
Sports fans are addicted, okay? That's what ruins the sport of boxing to a degree. You put on these mediocre pay-per-view events, and the boxing fans are addicted. They buy it. They buy, shows that really aren't worthy of being pay-per-view, or they give you one decent main event, and then the undercard is very weak, and people still get it.
Well, but that's why then you have like Jake Paul, who is not, he's becoming more of a boxer now, but all he was an influencer on YouTube, somebody who people followed a little bit and said, you know what, I see an opening here where I could be. All he did was take a little bit of what Don King did back then and start to do the same type of thing now.
Paul came after. He's irrelevant in this. He came after. You pay Doc $20 per Yankee playoff game to watch them if they become pay-per-view for the playoffs.
I do not. If the Yankees could become
one game playoff, let's say the old way in the wild card, you pay the $20 for the one game. I probably do. If it's
I don't. No, it infuriates me. It's we're talking before about all the rule changes and things like that. They're changing the game and all. Look, we can debate whether or not the extra. We didn't even get into the fact that they're making bases bigger, which I think is ludicrous. But those are things that are about the game. But the game is there for the fans. I understand it's a big business, but the more you make fans pay for the same product that they used to get for free, the more you drive people away from it. And if the Yankees were on and it was, I'd put it on the radio, or I'd just do what I do on a Friday night. I look on ESPN on the game thread and I check it every so often and go, oh, Yankees are up. Good. Oh, they're losing. All right. And then I saw on the game thread on my blog, somebody who was watching the game wrote Aaron Hicks says hands of stone. So I said to my son, hey, look it up on Twitter or something. Let's see the play that we just missed when they're talking about Aaron Hicks can't catch the ball. And so we looked at it that way. But I didn't watch the game, and I would refuse. If the Yankees were $20 or $100 or $10 to watch the playoff game, I'd just say, okay, obviously you don't want me to watch the game. I'm not paying it.
That's just on principle.
Yeah, well, it is, but that's the principle.
Yeah, but you'll still spend the $20 for the hat or the $40 for the shirt. So
you still got the price tag inside of it, though. Oh, see.
No. No. My point is that I don't really spend the money on the hat. This hat's 5 or 6 or 7 years old already.
Yeah. No, but I understand. But again, that people are going to spend money. And I feel that it's becoming more and more of a challenge. You're talking to somebody now. I go to the games. So if the Eagles are playing, there's a good chance that you're going to see me there.
Yep.
Just because that's how I know hats are not $20. They're more like $35
right?
now.
What gets me? They have a pay-per-view boxing event. They charge $75. They might charge, if it's a massively major fight, up to $100. And people say, well, why don't you buy it and invite people over? I don't want to invite 4 or 5 people over and then say, oh, tell them to split the price. That's nearly as ludicrous as Mac and Doc saying, oh, if Judge really wants to remain a Yankee, he'll sign that deal they offered him in spring training.
That wasn't ridiculous.
Stuff like that. I couldn't help but get a dig at you guys.
Doc, was that ridiculous? That was not ridiculous, was it? That was not ridiculous.
No, I think the contract, we don't want to get into the Yankees. Pags will go nuts. But I think the contract the Yankees offered Judge was very reasonable. I thought it was very fair. Yeah. And he turned it down. And I have no problem with him turning it down. He has every right to turn it down. But it was a fair offer. He's now having a phenomenal season. Mm-hmm. And some team, and I don't think it'll be the Yankees, is going to overpay for Aaron Judge coming off a phenomenal, great MVP season. He's not going to repeat this. I mean, the odds are he won't. The betting person would say, and I don't bet, but the person looking ahead into the future would say, well, the odds are that he's definitely not going to produce like this over the period of a 8-10 year contract, but some team is going to overpay for him. I don't see Aaron Judge coming back, and I don't have any problem with that.
My point on the Judge thing is the Yankees' offer to him in the offseason is going to be substantially more than they offered in spring training.
Sure.
And he might not take it. He might sign elsewhere. And the deal that they're going to offer him this offseason, he probably would have taken. They didn't come up with their best offer or sign him a couple of years ago when they should have had a vision the way these other teams, did with their young players like Seattle, like Julio Rodriguez, the Padres, even though he's had some off-the-field issues, Fernando Tatis, Ronald Acuna with the Braves.
But you know what? We're going to find out. We keep hearing all that. And I'm not a Yankee apologist, obviously. I hold the Yankees accountable, and I'm not happy with a lot of the decisions they make, etc. But I don't have a problem with the Yankees not giving Judge a big contract. Unfortunately, he came up as an older player, and he has been hurt often. And for the Yankees then to just say, well, you have a lot of potential, that's what they did with Aaron Hicks. We're going to give you a big contract because you had one good year. I'm not a big fan of that. And I know a lot of teams are doing that. The Braves did it with Acuna, and the Padres with Tatis Jr., and the Mariners just did it. But we're going to have to see over time if those big deals made any sense. I mean, they're doing it. That seems to be the thing. But Tatis has been hurt, and now he's suspended. So are the Padres making what's he going to be when he comes back?
But there's the rare player, because we had Jeter's retirement yesterday. Jeter transcended just being a player. He was a brand. And there are very few of them in sports that are more than just players for their franchise. They're called the face of the franchise. And that's what Judge is with the Yankees. And most teams don't have a face of the franchise. You take the Phillies. The Phillies don't quite have a face of the franchise yet. Bryce Harper's probably trending towards that, but he's not there yet. But, and even with the Mets, is DeGrom quite the face of the franchise? I'm not that sure. He could be if they re-sign him and ultimately wind up there, and you could make an argument that way. But certain players are very few are faces of the team. You can't. That's why the Yankees could never let a Derek Jeter go, to play elsewhere. It just wouldn't make sense. I mean, and that's the case with Judge.
I don't think he's a Yankee next year.
I forget the name of the first baseman for the Mets.
Keith Hernandez.
No, the first baseman for the Mets. I would
Alonso?
say I would say that he's the face of the franchise now.
Not quite. Not on the par with Judge. Not even that. Not close yet. Not close. Not quite. Alonso could get to that at some point, perhaps, but no. I mean, Judge is that rarity. If he's not a Yankee, that's an empty feeling. You're looking at the identity of the team. That's what I mean. If you want to look at it strictly as on the field, you could make a little more of an argument, to back up what you're saying. But it's all those that outside element. You just can't let a face of a franchise go, because the Yankees if Judge leaves, they have no face of the franchise in waiting. The only player that could potentially be it down the road, who you could see who's homegrown, it would take years if Anthony Volpe turns into a major star, something like that. But that would be years away, and who knows how good Anthony Volpe is eventually going to become, even though the reports on him are he's going to be very good.
Was Albert Pujols the face of the Cardinals?
You want to know something? He was. You could argue when he was there before he went to the Angels.
Yeah, absolutely was.
Yeah, he was the face. Yeah, he was
one of the great players, and he left. I mean, everybody says, like, why would he was St. Louis baseball and he left. Players leave. There's nothing wrong with them leaving. Like people want to say,
but
like,
the Cardinals made every effort to keep him.
All right, so the Yankees will make a nice offer, and he might go elsewhere. And if I
but the Yankees let it get to this point.
So the Cardinals.
Cardinals offered him a 9-year deal, whatever. Yeah, well, listen. You could say whatever, but the Cardinals continued to be successful. I mean, after Pujols.
Hey, let me ask you this for the Aaron Judge thing. This is going to be his one chance to play where he wants to play. The system is set up where you're drafted by a team. That team owns your rights for a period of time. And then if you have a long enough career and a good enough career, you then have the opportunity to be a free agent and play wherever you want and make a decision based upon where you want to play. And there's going to be a million factors in that. It's going to be who's going to pay you the most, who's going to pay you the longest, but also where do I feel the most comfortable? Where do I want to play? And which team, if you're somebody like Aaron Judge, do I see being competitive over the course of the next 7, 8, 10 years?
Agreed.
If Aaron Judge is looking at the 2023, 24 Yankees, he's looking going like, it's really going to be based around me. I'm like the whole team. Or I could go to the Dodgers or the Mets or the Red Sox or some other team, any team, the Giants. He grew up and said he was a Giants fan when he was growing up. And maybe it wouldn't all be on my shoulders. Maybe I'd love to go home to play in California. Maybe I'd love to play for the Dodgers. And maybe he goes there. And there's nothing wrong with that. Make as much money as you can. Or play for the team you want to play. Or play for the team you think is going to be the winner.
Play for the Yankees. If a player wants to go free agent, he goes free agent. Aaron Judge would have accepted the Yankee deal if they gave him a deal that was befitting of what he could get on the free agent market. 2 cases in point. Mookie Betts went to the Dodgers. They ultimately had to trade him. He let the Red Sox know, I'm going free agent. I'm not signing a deal with you. And so the Red Sox knew we can't even negotiate with the guy. We're going to have to trade him. The only way we could sign him is maybe as a free agent. Juan Soto, Nationals offered him a deal. Juan Soto didn't even come back with a counter offer because that meant I'm going free agent in 2.5 years, and that's that. But Aaron Judge his people are trying to negotiate in the offseason, okay, with the Yankees, but during spring training. So if the Yankees came up with the type of deal that they're going to offer him, I don't know what the numbers are going to be, but I'm sure the Yankees are going to up their offer very substantially. He probably would have taken that deal because there was a little uncertainty on Aaron Judge's part. He gambled on himself, but there has to be a little uncertainty how big a year he really was going to have. You know, he's human in that sense.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Well, we have plenty. We'll have all winter to talk about Judge. But if the Yankees offered him $35 million for 10 years, who's to say that would have been a good deal?
He would have. You want to know something? He would have taken that.
But do you want to pay him? That my point is, do you want to pay him $35 million for 10 years going forward?
Had they offered him $37 million a year for 8 years, okay?
I wouldn't have paid that. I wouldn't have made that offer. I think the Yankees were smart not to make that offer.
And Carlos is putting up remarks. I don't know what world he lives in about Judge and $5 million and only, and that's guaranteed. I mean, I don't know.
5 years. 5 years only guaranteed. He's not saying $5 million. He's saying 5 years, that he'll only get 5 years. Again, so we started out with the Yankees. We end with the Yankees.
Poor Bags. I'm sorry.
The truth of the matter is that I think that Judge is going to go somewhere else. He's probably going to go to the Mets, and then that means we're going to get DeGrom in Philadelphia. Because, as much as you'd love to think that the owner of the Mets is just going to throw away $1 billion, he ain't going to do it like that. He's not going to be able to pay for everybody, and DeGrom's going to be in Philly. So that's how I see the landscape happening. That all being said, our 2 hours is up here. Like I said, we start with the Yankees, we end with the Yankees, but it was a fairly lively show, minus a little bit of pumpkin spice talk. Jack
I'm gonna go get some candy corn.
That Jack was not real happy about.
Candy corn.
So, but everybody, Thank you again for tuning in, and tune in tomorrow as they do. I'm not going to be hosting the show. It's going to be Mac, Jack, and Jim this Sunday in football, and I'll be stopping on in all of my splendor as the Philly sports guy here in Detroit. So everybody, have a great weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow.